Welcome to the Voice of C38 Untapped. I am Brendan Wyatt. Today we are at Big Choice Brewing in Brighton. I am joined by a whole bunch of my media fam. Voice of C38 media MLS contributor Brian Jennings.
Aloha, friends.
From Mile High Sports, host of the Connor Cape Show, Connor Cape.
Good evening, everybody.
Also from Mile High Sports, Marco Cummings,
Howdy.
magazine contributor. And
Who's that guy in the end?
Ryan Madden, director of communications from the Rapids.
Happy to be here. Thanks for putting it together, Brendan.
Yeah, no problem. Let's just jump right into some beer, guys.
Yeah.
We're
Let's
going to start this off with the Princess Karate Dragon Fruit Sour.
With a name like that, it's gotta be good.
It's a sour one, guys, so we're going to start our palate off sour.
Cheers,
So,
mates.
Cheers to a snowy day.
Spill it up.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, you can really taste the dragon in that.
The dragon actually is almost a little overwhelming, to be fair.
Good dragon, though. How I like my dragon.
If it was a hot day, I think it would be refreshing.
They're they're awesome summer beers.
For those at home, though,
much hotter
it's
does it need to be?
actually about 19 degrees right now.
That's putting it high, too.
So it's maybe not the most apt beer for the occasion, but what do we
All right,
got?
Ryan, I got a question for you. You know, we can all see this has been a pretty heavy overhaul of the, like you said, the roster, but also the front office.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of curious, the players that you've been around in the off season, you know, that you've talked to. I know, for example, I saw Michael Azira, Richie Perez, and Nana at Coach Hudson's introduction. But anybody else around? I mean, what are you getting from feedback for them? What are their reactions to all the changes?
Yeah, I think by and large, the player feedback that I've received has been incredible.
Nice.
One of Marco's colleagues, actually at MLSsoccer.com, Sam Steckel, wrote a really great piece, I think last month, so 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it was an interview with Coach Hudson and with Tim Howard. So it was an interview with the manager and the captain, and it was kind of what are their thoughts on the club's overhaul? What's their their thoughts on the vision for the future of this club going forward? And Tim had a really interesting perspective on it. He said, look, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, look, I've been around some of the best managers in the world. I've been around Sir Alex Ferguson and David Moyes, but I was still blown away when I sat down with Coach Hudson. And everyone says the same thing, right? Anybody, not just him, and anyone you talk to, they all talk about his preparation and their confidence in his overriding methodology, the way he goes about things. I mean, look, he lives it, he breathes it. He loves being a manager, and getting results is his sole focus. He wants to bring an MLS Cup to Colorado. That's all he's thinking about at any given moment. And so I think that resonates with the players, and I think it's something that the players maybe haven't experienced as members of the Colorado Rapids before.
Our second beer on this flight.
Oh, wow, we're
Third
It's
here.
a test.
We're in.
This is the Peppermint Stout.
All right,
Oh,
wait.
wow.
Make sure I pick the right one here.
Yeah, there it is.
Give it a
That's
little sniff. You'll know.
Oh, it tastes like Christmas.
Everybody,
Can we get some labels?
Big Choice really serves this one up nice too, because they'll put a little peppermint sugar around the rim of the pint glass, and you get a
nice.
little mini York peppermint patty.
Now we're talking.
So it's a value added.
You had it.
This is my favorite by far.
Yeah.
So I'm out.
How's the team doing as far as international roster spots?
Yeah.
Obviously, you've picked up some international players, and do you hope to pick up more international roster spots or more international players in this window before it closes?
Yeah, so the one thing to keep in mind when it comes to talking about international roster spots is that the club does not have to be officially compliant with the international roster spots rule until March 1st. So I wouldn't get too caught up right now in seeing, trying to do the mathematics on how many international people are currently on the roster and versus how many spots do you think we have. So we essentially have 4 weeks to get compliant with MLS guidelines, right? Now, in that 4 weeks, there's a ton of moving parts. For example, we have an immigration lawyer on staff who is currently being tasked with getting as many of our current first team roster players who hold international roster spots through the green card process, which would free up international roster spots. Now, you can also send players out on loan. And to be clear, they don't have to go on season-long loan. They can go on temporary loan too, and that frees up first-team international roster spots. Roster spots can also be traded between teams. They have monetary value. So, look, I don't want to give too much away in terms of where this is going to end up on March 1st, but when that day does come, I think we're willing to be very open and transparent about who's holding those spots and how we arrived at those people being the ones who are holding the international roster spots.
Kudos to that. Connor's emptying on some beer, so let's move on to some beer.
What do we got here?
This is the Type 3.
This is your favorite.
This is my favorite.
Yeah.
This is the Type 3 IPA. So
It smells a little citrusy. I like it.
it is. And if you mix it with their Type 5, you can get a 7.
That's a terrible joke.
Yes, it is. John's going to have to edit that one out. He won't, though.
That's really good. You guys know.
For those watching at home, I just want everyone to know that our two camera guys are currently at the bar. They're not even behind the cameras. They're
Not
just
even
at the
listening.
bar having drinks right now, socializing.
That's how good the beer is. They've
Yeah,
just
yeah.
completely forgotten
Hey
us.
guys. Hey.
Don't mind us. There's a show to do.
So I'm gonna get personal here.
Personal.
With Ryan.
Uh-oh.
man.
What's your middle name?
Michael.
What attracted you personally to the game of soccer and to take this job with the Rapids?
Yeah, man, that's a tough one.
How long do we have?
Yeah, all right. So, I remember the day that I became a soccer fan. The day that I became a soccer fan. I was raised in a traditional American sports family. It was college sports and NFL and NBA, and soccer was not on my radar, quite frankly, growing up. I didn't even play in AYSO leagues. I became a fan in June of 1994 when my dad got me and my family 4 tickets to the USA versus Colombia World Cup match at the Rose Bowl. And there's something kind of beautiful about that in the sense that the memory that is most vivid for me was we were facing the press box side, looking out to the left. There was a corner kick, and of all people, Marcelo Balboa, Rapids legend, goes for the bike. And he misses it by this much. But it was like, for me, it was this moment where it was like, oh my gosh.
You guys
Like
do
that was one of the most incredible things I'd ever seen. And the scenes were amazing. People were chanting ole, 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 USA, USA in the hallways that led from the exterior perimeter into the stadium, and it was hot, and my brother and we had to pour water on ourselves to keep cold. And I remember what the ultimately tragic own goal by Escobar, the Colombian defender. I remember John Harkes' through ball to Ernie Stewart and him slotting home. And I remember walking away thinking, somehow in the last couple hours, I've become a fan of this. And I think like maybe that indoctrination into soccer is similar to a lot of people my age, right? I mean, I think soccer became part of our societal consciousness in 1994. When those guys in denim jerseys ran around and did the country proud, and I look back on that and I can say that I know that day I became a soccer fan, and I certainly wouldn't be the director of communications for the Colorado Rapids if I hadn't attended that game, if I hadn't have seen Marcelo go for the bike, if we hadn't have won. I mean, it's interesting, I think, how those small moments have lasting impacts on your life. Here.
Let's have our 4th beer on the moment of...
Speaking of the World Cup.
World Cup. This is the Russian Imperial Stout, guys.
Oh, see what
All
I did
right.
there?
Now we're speaking my language.
Yeah. Since we're going Russian.
That is...
Ooh, that's got a little.
It's got a little bite to it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Dark.
You guys know I'm partial to the dark beer, so tasty. It's got a little bit of a kick.
It does have a kick. I have to hit the head.
All right. 12 minutes later.
Yeah, really.
One of the things that has been kind of a struggle when it comes to Colorado and soccer, and this is one of the reasons why the Voice of C38 was created, is I felt there was a disconnect between soccer fans and Rapids fans and what was being put out there on the radio and major market magazines, and most you guys have bosses that need to deal with this kind of stuff. So what are you faced with, and maybe you can shed some light on that when it comes to giving soccer a voice on your airwaves?
I would just
magazines
maybe,
like,
and not to try to run the show, but I think Connor actually has a really interesting perspective on that, in that I've heard you talk before about how you've sort of positioned soccer as like the sport of the future, and how you've tried to sell producers who might not be fully vested in the sport on that, right?
exactly, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I work for Mile High Sports. I don't know if y'all know that, but there's a lot of people at the office.
They know who you are, Connor.
Don't sell yourself short.
Some do, some don't. But there are a lot of people at my office. There are a lot of people who host other shows on the station who are not. They're not soccer fans. They joke about soccer. They joke about me liking soccer. I mean, I walk into the office sometimes. I'm like, hey, you guys see that Liverpool Man City game? You know, Liverpool finally stops the unbeaten streak for Man City, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, and I've tried to bring like soccer to Mile High Sports specifically, but also to everyone that Mile High Sports reaches, which is all of Denver, Boulder, Colorado Springs, everything. And it's not a tough slog. It's not hard. Like, there are people out there who want to hear about soccer. It's just someone has to put the content out there for them. And I've had Porig on my show. I've had Zach McGrath on my show. I've had Matt Doyle of MLSsoccer.com on my show.
Lexi Lawless.
I've had Alexi Lawless of Fox Sports on my show. Thank you, Ryan. And there are people who eat that up. And it's people like this, people like y'all, people who are watching this. They eat it up. There's a passion for it. You just have to bring it to them. And you just got to endure the jokes from people who don't get it, or people who aren't into it, because I really do believe it is the sport of the future. I saw some statistics about
The Gallup poll.
what sport
Yeah, I
Americans
saw
like
that.
most,
Saw that.
and soccer has gone up from less than 1% to 7% in 20 years. So
And you look
20 years from now, where does it go from there? It
You look
grows
at those
exponentially.
attendance figures that have come out. We've seen them the last couple of years.
Well, right. MLS has higher attendance figures than La Liga, the Eredivisie, a couple other leagues in Europe.
Serie A.
Serie A. So,
Ligue 1, all of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's America has a population of 330, 340 million people. There's a lot there. There's a fan base that's just waiting to be tapped into.
I definitely want to send a huge thank you for you guys all to making it out here on a snowy evening. And thank you to Big Choice for keeping your doors open.
It's a big choice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That will wrap up episode 6. Thank you all. Cheers.
Aloha. Thank you.
Next time you're in Denver, hit me up. That was bro.
That's not my persona.
That was mega bro.
Should I buy my beer now, or how you doing?
That double leg break right there.